I mean, it's kind of late. Should we sit down? It's maybe more chilled, I would say.
You can sit down, but I stay.
Okay, cool. I think that's cool. So
it feels good. It gives ideas.
There's contrast.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's not that bad.
If you get tired, you know where the sea is. That's awesome. So I wanted to start by talking a little bit about the structure of the film, because the film, in a sense, it can be broken down into maybe three main sections. You have Angela Raducanu's job driving through the streets of Bucharest. Then you have it's interpolated with the film by Lucian Bratu from 1981. And then you also have Angela from the present day. You also have her kind of filtered Andrew Tate-esque rantings. And I mean, the first thing I mentioned is in black and white, the second is in color, and the third is in color as well. And I'd be interested to know a little bit about, in a sense, which of those things came first, or did they all come together? Was the script written with all those things in mind? And how did you also go about combining them?
Yeah. First of all, tomorrow, I think at 6 in Viennale Centrale, I will have a discussion about the construction of the script.
That's awesome.
So I wouldn't spoil that much, so maybe some people will come tomorrow. But to answer your question, it's true that the film is constructed, is built in layers that I think can be seen, like you notice them, and of course, not all of those come together at once. When you build a story, a film, a project before becoming a film. And in this case, it started actually from some recollections, because I started working in cinema very young and on very low positions and doing all the kind of crappy jobs that you could get in Romania at that time. End of 90s, because beginning of 2000, it was a time where a lot of foreign companies would come to shoot for cheap labor and cheap locations, etc. So it was also a kind of chance to get into the industry. And me, since I was rejected 3 times by the film school, I had this opportunity, this path, so to speak. And of course, working for many years in all kind of capacities, and then directing all kinds, to make a living, all kinds of things, from telenovelas to teleshopping and to other things like that. You encounter a lot of stories, a lot of situations, a lot of problems, a lot of things. And after some years, because these are old stories, but I think it's important to say that they are a little bit older, they crystallize in your mind or in the perception in something that seems very symbolical somehow. For instance, the story of the woman driving here and there was also my story when I did these kind of jobs, but also the story of other people. And when you are tired, nobody would care despite the risks. And I know a case of someone who died in a car crash after that. And that was one of the things that impressed me so much, that when I became a director myself, I refused to go to shoot commercials or music videos outside of Bucharest if the whole crew wouldn't have a night hotel. And many jobs I lost because of that, of course. And so that's one of the stories. The other story, I was involved as a filmmaker for a corporate video with this Austrian company, doing this kind of apparently, because this is why they offer me a lower salary, because they said, you know, it's a humanitarian thing. We want to help our workers to be aware of that. And then little by little you discover that actually, well, it was not exactly. I mean, that was somehow recreated in the film. Also because I felt it's a story that it symbolizes something. And then little by little came the other layers. Like, for instance, when I casted Ilinca Manolache, she had this avatar. She made it during the pandemic, out of boredom. I don't know. She made it, and I was very much impressed by it, because it's so on the edge and full of contradictions. Ilinca is an outspoken feminist, but this avatar is a kind of, could be interpreted in both ways, if you want. And this is what I liked about it. So when I casted her, I said that I want you to come with the avatar, so to speak. And she said yes. And then doing the research, I started to think about, for the first part, which films about women driving I know from Romania, and it's the only one. this one of Lucian Bratu, and I saw it again and again, and then all of a sudden you discover in it the documentary details, which were, let's say, hidden from the censorship of that time. So then I said, why not make one scene to have a montage with that film? And then from one scene, actually my DOP said, he misunderstood me, and I think it's important because I didn't have, he said, oh, okay, I understood, so the whole film will be like that. I said, well, why not? So little by little it was built on accumulations. So, yeah.
That makes sense, that makes sense.
Tomorrow I will show photos from
okay, that's awesome, that's awesome. I mean, like I said, there are those three kind of structuring elements of the film, should we say, but I guess maybe the other main structuring element is the city of Bucharest itself, because it's very much, I mean, the film both spends most of its time moving through the city, but also there are various moments where kind of the specific topography of the city, both in the present day and in the past, are kind of revealed and contrasted. Yeah. I also thought it was interesting to think about your last feature, because that's also, it's maybe more of a road movie, perhaps on foot, but where did this interest come in kind of, you know, exploring the city in this way? And yeah, what specific elements of the city were you seeking to show? I think you show lots and lots of different things, but I guess I'd be interested to know which were the most important ones.
Well, it's two things here, I think, because my previous film is also set in Bucharest, and Bucharest is kind of a very important character in it, or background in it, in a different way, actually, because in this film, the first part, which is a kind of, actually, an anti-road movie, because usually road movies are on long distances, and the car in most of the road movies is seen like an element of freedom, of getting away from something to capture some freedom. I don't know, Easy Riders, this kind of things. And here the car is the opposite. But yeah, well, I think the road culture, the road problems in whole Romania, but especially in Bucharest, is a kind of very good map, very good landscape to understand the whole problems, let's say, because you have a kind of development which is uncontrolled. It's I just read yesterday that there's 4 million people in Bucharest and around, and more than 4 million cars. So you know,
that's crazy.
It's a lot, and the public transport. So all these things, the lack of public space and the destroying of the public space, that was and that's something that has to be said, because everybody said Bucharest was destroyed by Ceausescu regime, which is true in part, but it was much more destroyed after the revolution, without having a dictatorship to blame, so to speak. So in this way, maybe it's not very obvious for Western audiences, but I wanted. I mean, it's not even a thing that I wanted or not. The city was part of the film, and it became also, I think, a symbol of all the problems of the film. And the epitome of that, I think, is that small scenes with the crosses on the edge of the road.
Definitely.
In a way, which is the same idea, like the culmination, the peak of this, all the problems meet in this kind of thing. I think in my maybe I simplify a little bit.
And why did you? I mean, because that decision is a very stark decision somehow. That you, in a sense, that, you know, when she talks about that for this stretch of road, I think there were 600 crosses, and that you show every single one, if I'm not wrong.
No, not all. It was too long. It was 12 minutes, and I didn't have the courage to do that.
Okay. I mean, like what you did is already courageous, I would say, because I mean, it is really like a big break in the flow of the film, which also creates something new. Yeah, but here it's apart from what I said, that I think it's related with the symbol. It symbolizes the meeting of all these problems that in the film exist into this mix of kitsch and tragedy, if you want, because some of these crosses are really kitschy from an objective point of view, if you want to analyze it like this. If you can, I cannot, of course. But it's also a tragedy.
a collective tragedy, if you want. And in the same time, what I wanted, I have a taste more and more developed, let's say, for primitive forms of, not only of cinema, but also for other arts, let's say, as a viewer, as a reader, etc. So that the film is in a way very primitive. The mise en scène, let's say, is primitive. Is more closer to silent films with a fixed camera and very functional mise en scène. The montage is very brutal in a way. It's not a refined montage. So everything is so basic, so primitive that when I had this idea to put inside the film this small documentary, because it's a silent documentary, it's like a silent era kind of film, if you want. And used exactly like in the silent era where the cinema was shown on one side for entertainment, but on the other side as a kind of proof of reality. I don't know. Like I can show you that something exists by filming it. Lumiere were sending the camera operators all over the world, so you can see that the tigers exist, and I don't know, the black people.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? We have 2 mics, and if you could like raise your hand and like wave a lot so I can see you, that's great. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, thank you for this film and criticize of Austria. Our president would say we are not like this, but we are like this. I have one question.
I didn't think that I will be in Viennale with the film when I made it. So.
You mentioned in the film many companies like OMV or McDonald's or Red Bull or something like this, but you didn't mention the wood company Schweighofer. Why didn't you do it?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I thought no. Actually, I think it was a discussion that if you do it, if you name it like for the second part, if you say exactly it's Schweighofer, you can have some justice troubles. But I didn't. That was not a problem. I think I wanted to be more generic, not to be considered that it's only one specific problem. It's not a film about one specific issue, one specific company, let's say, because it's not only Schweighofer in the end, which I think that nowadays doesn't belong to Austria anymore. I think it's German, if I read well in a newspaper. But it's many. IKEA is doing it, and others are doing it. So it's the same thing, and it's true what the character of Nina Hoss says at some point, that it's Romanian responsibility. Of course, is a cynical way to put it, but in the end, well, you can say that it's true in a certain way, because a private company can want something from a state, and if that state gives it, and the citizens don't react, or like in Romania, sometimes citizens react, and journalists are beaten, foresters are killed, etc. So it happens like that, and then of course the complexity of the situation is bigger. When you simplify, you can say, well, if Romania would say no, this wouldn't happen, and in a certain way, I think it's true. Yeah, maybe I should have named it. I don't know.
Thank you. Any more questions? Please raise your hands, wave your hands. It's very bright here, so we can't really see you otherwise. I can see you. Go for it.
Yeah, can you say a little about Angela's dress, how you picked the costume?
Yeah, I did the costumes for the film. Which actually meant to let the actors come with their costumes. But in the case of this dress, actually it's interesting. It's an interesting question, because the answer is that it was a chaos situation. The mind, I think the mind works on cliches or on things that make sense, let's say, or generate meaning, of course. And when you think of a person who works, you would think that he or she would dress for work. So my initial idea was that she would be dressed, I don't know, with jeans and boots and something like that. And while I always do, in my last film I discovered something, that if you go in And in Romania we have a lot, we have some places where you store things. I don't know how you can, storage rooms for costumes, for furniture, for props, etc. of the film studios. And if you go there just to look, but not for something specific, just to take a look, and then the ideas can come from the objects themselves if you're open to some of them. And this small dress was thrown on the floor in one of these rooms, and I picked it up, and I liked the light game, and I said, well, I take it. And then I actually even know that what's written on it, it's something like Club Soda. It's a friend of mine from Canada who saw the film Denis Coté wrote me and said, you know, this dress, exactly this logo was of a drink, but also of an important music club in I don't know, Toronto or I don't know where. So I didn't know that. But so yeah. To end this long answer, when I found it, immediately I felt a kind of fear because I said, oh, but this doesn't have any meaning. This dress, why someone would dress like that in a working situation? And then I decided just to use it and not and let everybody find an explanation if there's one to be needed. But it's true that I thought a lot to do it or not, and in the end, we kept it. Now I'm glad I kept it.
Thank you. I think we have another question here at the front. 1 second. Go for it.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you tell us something about the soundtrack? Like for us Romanians, it's like we know the songs, but maybe how did you pick up all this?
It was a mix.
Different.
It's so first of all, I decided at some point that the character will listen to radio and music. And I even took out some radio news that I thought very good for that. For instance, one news about not big news, not that big news, but smaller news, because I believe that in anecdotes and in smaller things, sometimes you can find things in a way more interesting about civilization. Like for instance, the story of a Thailand family that they had a sick kid and killed him and decapitated him to freeze him for how it's called, cryogenize him. This kind of anecdotes. And in the editing, it was obvious that they cannot be. It's a lot of dialogue anyway. So I said no, only music. But then the problem with music, if it's this kind of diegetic music in a film, is that it becomes part of the character. Like we spoke about Easy Rider, when they listen to Born to Be Wild, and it's something. You see Dennis Hopper, Born to Be Wild, and it belongs to the character, etc. Or you can, or maybe it creates a contrast. And I didn't want neither of these directions. I didn't want the music to become a part of the character. So then the idea was to mix, to have, like it's from the radio, all kinds of musics, of musical pieces. And then, well, you start from the pragmatical side, because if you start thinking, that you can have, I don't know, Sex Pistols and Rolling Stones and whatever, well, that's impossible. So then I said maybe I would have only or mostly Romanian music of all kinds. So you cannot spot something, you cannot say this character listens to Manele music or to rock music or to, I don't know. So then I mixed with some things I knew, something my editor knew, or he's more into music. He used to be a kind of amateur DJ, so he gave me some of this techno music from a friend of his. But the one that I love the most are the most idiotic ones, let's say. It's interesting because I think it's an interesting story because it shows how much we are in a kind of bubbles, let's say, like the people say. Because I asked for a song from the company, a Romanian music company, and they said, no, we don't have it, but they sent me links with 20 other plays, 20 other songs. And I said, well, I don't care about those because I knew what I wanted. But I started to listen to them, and they were so there's one which the chorus is Cuțu Cuțu Nagrivei, which is a Romanian kids song about a dog, and it's on techno or dub things. And I said, I would never find myself this song. I wouldn't know how to search for it. And there were 2 or 3 like that, and I was very happy that I gave up my arrogance and listened to those, because I didn't want it. I said, about who do they think they can propose me music, and yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions? So we'll go, many. We'll go maybe right to the very back, and then to the middle, and then to the right.
Hello. I want to congratulate you to your movie for the beginning, first of all.
Thank you.
It was both very realistic and artistic in the same way. Sometimes it takes 100 pages to get into a book, and the same happens with movies. It takes you half an hour to get into the story, but with your beginning, I was right into it, and I really enjoyed this.
Maybe I should cut the 30 minutes. Could be. Yeah.
Well, there was enough time in the movie, but yeah.
I cannot. I become very attracted to when I film something, and it's very difficult to give them up. So that's the problem. Because I like all these small things, small anecdotes. For instance, we had a lot of discussions about the graveyard scene, because some of the people involved in the production of the film said, well, but that scene is not needed. I said, well, how can I give up with the quotation about the Saint Seraphim of Sarov, who, when he said, God is risen, the dead from the graves answered, truly he is risen. Well, I thought it's a great thing, but... So.
I think it works. Go for it.
Yeah, okay. I could talk more about it, but I want to come to my question. You mentioned that Bucharest was destroyed by the Ceausescu regime, but not only, that there were other points, and I would like to know what you think those points are, and if there's any connection to the fact that you filmed a lot of parts in black and white of modern times in your movie.
Can you repeat? I lost the beginning of the question, sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned before that...
that Ceausescu destroyed it, and then?
Big parts of Bucharest, but this was not the only point of how Bucharest got destroyed or to its situation. Yes. What are the other points of that, and what does that have to do with your black and white parts in the film of modern times?
Yeah. Well, I start with the end question. The black and white in the first part of the film is started for very practical reasons. Because we had to make, for instance, an application for Luxembourg Film Fund, and we mixed color images that I shot on my iPhone with Ilinca, with the archive, and they didn't understand which is which. So I said that we have a problem, so then I said, how do I solve it? And I solved it maybe in the most stupid way, but going to black and white in the first part. And then actually we tested a lot of things, and we did it in 16mm, which I never shot real black and white 16mm with push-to-stops in the lab. And I think it's beautiful, and I'm happy I did it. Now I can, of course, theorize why it's black and white, but I answer you honestly that it was a practical decision. And then, well, it gets to this abstract quality almost, I think. And also, I think it's a bit against this cliche that usually the past is screened in black and white and present in color, etc. So I think it's a lot of things like that. Regarding Bucharest, well, I think it's in 33 years after the revolution, there was no real investments in infrastructure. So now there's a lot of people having heating problems, etc. There was all those public spaces that still existed, or many of them were destroyed in order to build with no control all kinds of buildings. A lot of trees were destroyed in such a way that Romania, as I read now, has 6 times less trees than is the minimum accepted in European Union. Then a lot of monument houses, like the ones Ceausescu destroyed in Uranus, were destroyed by the new developers because, of course, that was hand in hand with the state, with the corruption of some of the state institutions that allowed them to buy a monument house, and they start construction sites saying that, which says there, it's a lot of these construction sites that says that this is going to be a improvement of this building or a consolidation of this building. And actually they put it down and build something instead, and in the end, so this kind of things. So let's say it's a kind of new capitalism with no control, and mixed with the local corruption. Which, if you number, and I didn't do it, of course, it's public numbers, it's public statistics. Many more things were destroyed in this way than before. And there's also no law. I mean, one of the things, because I have 2 kids, whenever I walk in the street, and especially when there's older buildings, it's literally they fall apart, they fall down, pieces of it. And now all the buildings has a small paper which says, take care, the tencuiala, how you say tencuiala? The tencuiala is fall down. The bricks are falling down, something like that. So they just put this. So you know, these kind of things that maybe they don't seem very piece by piece. They don't seem terrible, but altogether make the city very, very toxic and very difficult to live in. Plus the pollution, plus the number of cars that we spoke before. All this. The public transportation doesn't work very well, etc.
Thank you. So we had another question in the middle.
I could run for the mayor. No, you know.
Go for it.
In Vienna.
Thank you.
The last scene of the film is like very long shot, and I wanted to ask if you edited it, or was there any CGI to make it look so long, or how did you like rehearse or shoot it? How many days? Because it's so well choreographed, and everybody is like, it looks like a documentary. It was really good.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, because it's the film, the most loose film that I made, and I think you're the 3rd person, including people from cinema, like filmmakers, who said that they said it's the most rehearsed and controlled film I have made. And whenever I said that I did only 1 take, or sometimes 2, and very rarely 3, almost they don't believe it. And because actually what I wanted to explore a little bit was the lack of control. Meaning by that we rehearse the lines, because I'm interested in words, and I'm interested in the mise en scène of the words very much. So I wouldn't let, apart some cases, much room for improvisation regarding the dialogues, because I really believe that each word is as important as any element in the film. I think I answered to this with a quotation from Rivette in your questionnaire that you asked from some filmmakers in Forum.
Exactly, yeah.
Last year. And Rivette has this idea that the sound, including here the dialogues, is an element in the filmmaking as important as all the other ones. So I wouldn't let the actors improvise the lines, because they would use words that, for me, as I said, the words are extremely important. They would use probably other words, maybe better, but it doesn't matter if it's better. I don't want to make better films. It's it's there is this South African proverb I just read, which I think is beautiful. They said, if a good doctor cannot cure you, you should search for a less good doctor. So I think it's so actually what I really tried to do was not to control the film that much, and so this is why it was. I didn't even go in some of the locations as a kind of imitation from Fassbinder, not because of laziness, because he said, well, I need the element of surprise to fire my imagination. I think he's right. It's much more interesting to go into a location when you don't know anything. Maybe you saw a photo or something, and to do the film. So the film was done like that, and very, very fast. I mean, quite fast for a film of this duration. It was 21 days of shoot, 22 with the crosses, 22 days of shooting. And very, very few film stock, very few takes, very few rehearsals. And I'm amazed that despite my effort to make it much more loose, it still can give the impression that it's quite controlled. I don't know. You always, maybe it's a psychoanalytical thing, you end up getting exactly what you didn't want to.
That happens.
Yeah, it happens. It happens to me all the time, actually.
I think, thank you. I think we had another question on the other, yeah, if we could just get you, oh, there's two. Maybe we'll do the two of you and then we maybe call it a night because we're moving close to 1 a.m. and, you know, we have an extra hour of sleep, but we don't want to overdo it. And there is also a masterclass tomorrow which you all should attend. Go for it.
Photos, a lot of photos. Nice photos, anecdotes, a lot of anecdotes that were out from the film.
Sounds nice.
I think so.
I think so too.
Better than the film. Actually, there is a scene that I cut, and when I saw it again, I said I was extremely idiotic because it's much better than many of the scenes that I kept in the film.
And you'll show that tomorrow.
I show it tomorrow.
Ah, okay, wow, you're selling it well.
3 minutes.
Okay,
wow.
The next question.
Yeah, here. Thank you, Radu, for the movie tonight. It moved me a lot, and why I liked it a lot was because it showed a part of Bucharest that always seems very harsh and vulgar, and it showed some vulnerability and like how does it feel to be there and work there, and yeah. And what I wanted to ask you is, I saw some movies now in this year's Viennale, and I saw some similarities between your movies and other movies, and it has to do with narrative and storytelling. And so the similarity was that's like you try to say a story via a female character, and while trying to say that story, actually that character meets other characters or other situations, and it's not actually a character in a story. It's like you start to follow someone, and then actually you get to know other people, and you get to realize it's a context and it's not one narrative. And I wanted to ask you, because you are quite prolific director in the last years, did you experience or did you think about it, or do you feel like there is a shift in how narratives are built nowadays in cinema, in European cinema?
Well, for this question, I think somebody like James can answer to you, and I will ask him to answer because I know very little from the production in the last years, or Cecilia Barrio Nuevo from Mar del Plata, who knows a lot of cinema.
We can hand that question to Cecilia Barrio Nuevo.
So I don't know if it's a shift in narrative. For me, to be honest, actually the influence is more in literature than in cinema, and more in older literature and also in new literature, which is in a way the same. Because if you read James Joyce, if you read Ulysses, and then you know that he was, let's say, inspired or influenced by Tristram Shandy. And if you read Tristram Shandy, like if you read Diderot or this kind of novels before Balzac, you discover in them, like, I don't know, in Rabelais, in Don Quixote, a kind of freedom of narrative that is much more similar with the modernist literature than with the classical literature. So as I said, as I'm interested in primitive things, I'm interested in primitive cinema, or so-called primitive cinema, so-called primitive literature, whatever. So it was this. And now regarding Bucharest, I have an observation to make, because not in the same line as you said it, but someone in another meeting like that was very angry at me, and she said, well, you shot only in the ugliest parts of Bucharest. Every city has ugly parts, but you chosen only the ugly parts. First of all, of course, to make a film means to have a number of choices, to limit yourself, to kick out, etc. So I don't think that to shoot in the most terrible parts of the city would be a problem. But in my case, the film is shot, and I wanted to have a kind of all the Bucharest landscapes. So you have the villas at the periphery, you have the big new buildings at the periphery. You have this graveyard, you have the office buildings, you have the Ferentar buildings, which is the poor parts. You have the center of Bucharest. You have a shawarma place, etc. So I think it's very diverse. I wanted it to be very diverse. And I'm amazed when people say that person, and not you, said, oh, you shot only in the ugliest part of Bucharest. And I said, what do you mean? I said, well, in Ferentar, in the neighborhood of Ferentar. Actually, it was a racist remark because there's a lot of Roma people living there. And I said, well, the whole scene in Ferentar is maybe 4 minutes or something, you know. So I don't know why the film gives this impression, but it's shot, and I think it's visible that in all the typical parts of Bucharest, I think, or most of them.
Thank you very much. So maybe that one last question that was, yeah, go for it.
You have a big burden on your shoulders.
Indeed, make it good.
I'll do my best. Thank you for the film, Radu. I really liked the fact that it had many ramifications, the film, and many anecdotes, as you said. And one big question mark for me was, like, was there a parallel between the two characters, the two Angelas from the two different movies? It felt for me a bit like an open-end story there, and were there a bridge between those two films for this character, and how, apart from that, both were driving from Bucharest? Yeah.
Well, that's a question that, of course, it's, as you said, open. It's open to the audiences. I just put, you know, two ways of representing. One, which is made today by me in, let's say, political freedom, at least, that you can make a film more or less as you want if you manage to get the financing, and one which was made in 1980 under political censorship. So it's two different versions, two different representations, let's say, of a character. And one of the questions that I have, or I thought that might appear, is what does it mean, a character? Because when I think of the film, I have this image like a cubist painting where a face is broken in many parts. Because for me, it's only one character in a way. It's this Angela, which has an older version and a new version, but also a future version, because I imagine that Ovidiu, the guy in the wheelchair, could be Angela next day, or in 2 days, or in 3 days, plus this digital avatar, which is in a way a kind of if you want a metaphor, like for every one of us, we all have a kind of digital, not an avatar necessarily, but a digital portrait, a virtual portrait already from what exists online, I think. So for me, it's one character actually there, but like in a cubist painting, as I said. But maybe that's not true. It's what crosses my mind when I finished the film, actually.